How to Garden the Low Carbon Way, the Steps You Can Take to Help Combat Climate Change by Sally Nix. It was published last year in 2021 by Penguin Random House. I guess most of us know our climate is tanking. Using fossil fuels for vehicles and factories is making a huge carbon footprint. This author, simply put, tells us how plants which grab the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and puts it into its leaves, roots, and then eventually can store it in the soil, locking it out of the atmosphere for many years. So when we grow gardens, we are helping the planet. There, I just summarized the book for you. Designing the low-carbon garden. Well, what exactly is a low-carbon garden? Oh! It's a garden that buzzes with life, sparkles with water, and is packed with plants. If designed well, it can act as a carbon sink and actively combat climate change. She has a great design here. So what you need in the garden is hedges, fedges, coppices, vegetable gardens, compost bins, trees, wild meadows, tapestry lawns, rain gardens and ponds, flower borders, rainwater harvesting, and driveways. She will go into detail further on down there. She suggests not buying new materials, and interestingly, after water, concrete is the most consumed material in the world. What? And wood is one of the few carbon negative materials you can use in the garden as long as it's sourced locally. Over the lifetime of the tree that it's cut from, it absorbs and locks up more carbon from the atmosphere than the building process adds. She also gives great alternatives for building. Next comes the plants. Plant a wide mix of trees, shrubs, perennials, and ground cover, and your garden becomes a miniature carbon sink. Managing a low-carbon mixed border. The idea is to lock as much carbon into the plants and soil as you can and keep it there for as long as possible. I really appreciated her suggestions on what to do for each season. Pretty much a grass lawn is taboo. But if you have to have one, mow less often, use a lithium-ion powered lawnmower, or better yet, go for a lawn that doesn't use grass. And if you're feeling really ambitious, grow a wildflower meadow. A low-carbon meadow adds almost nothing to your garden's carbon footprint. Hedges not only provide boundaries and shelter to your garden, but also are rich in woody biomass. A well-grown hedge has the potential to sequester and store significant amounts of carbon. Evergreens are the most efficient at absorbing carbon dioxide as they photosynthesis even year-round. Good examples would be yew, Darwin's barberry, Japanese holly, bay laurel, and pittosporum. Then when you need to trim your hedges, you could make a fedge with your woody clippings. It makes a great border, and also wildlife love it. And this is how you do it. She then talks quite a bit about paths, paving, and patio stones. I enjoyed this section very much. Low-impact paths don't require quarrying or cement. Everything is renewable, recyclable, and biodegradable. Two suggestions that I'm definitely going to use for my garden are these log slices and boardwalks. I already used the wood chips suggestion, and I just love these other two ideas rather than pavers and cement products. Who doesn't want a greenhouse, right? Well, they actually are bad news. You can significantly reduce the carbon footprint of your greenhouse by using greener heating options, but you can get rid of its carbon footprint altogether. The fact is that a greenhouse is an artificial growing environment that brings with it a large carbon cost. Oh dear. She then gives ideas on how to garden without using one. Okay, I really enjoyed her chapter on growing vegetables. especially on how to save seeds. Of course, using your own seeds year after year is the least carbon wasting method. She really has a knack of explaining things simply, like how to hand pollinate. Water gardening. Bodies of water can absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, so our garden ponds are not only fascinating habitats for plants and wildlife, but can also act as carbon sinks. I was really interested in this section because I have a huge natural pond and several man-made ponds, as my place is very boggy. But alas, unfortunately, the world's most efficient carbon sinks can also be among the worst emitters of methane, a potent greenhouse gas. Oh dear, but she gives good ideas on how to combat this. Watering. Every time you turn on the tap to water your garden with treated water, you add to your carbon footprint. So use water with care and make the most of what falls from the sky. It's free and it's better for your plants and the environment too. That perfectly sums up her chapter on watering. Weeding. Well, she's pretty funny. There is one way to get rid of all your weeds without expending any effort. Just start calling them wildflowers. Ha ha. But I do need to learn to embrace more of them in my own garden, I must admit. Feeding. Forget buying fertilizer from now on. You can make your own. I'm sure loving all her suggestions, but you'll have to read for yourself what she suggests. But it's gold. The takeaway from this chapter is that bugs are good and they are dying off, so you need to plant to attract them. They are what pollinate the produce we eat. If there were no pollinators, there would be no veggies or fruit. Potting mix. She strongly wishes that people do not use peat, as it's a huge carbon catcher, but once it's mined, it's a huge carbon waster. Plus, it comes in plastic. The best solution is to make your own potting mix, and she gives recipes for that. Seed sowing. Sowing a seed and watching it burst to life never loses its thrill if you're a gardener, but sowing can carry a surprisingly high carbon footprint unless you do it the low carbon way, which is don't use plastic pots and trays, but make your own out of newspaper, cardboard, or toilet paper rolls. Managing soils. One of the best ways to protect your garden's soil carbon sink potential is to disturb it as little as possible. That means stop digging and ditch the artificial fertilizers. Cover the ground and use green manures. Pest control. Prevention is better than cure. Mix it up. Make your own pesticides. The next two chapters are about buying things for your garden, whether plants or materials. Always try and go local. Always ask yourself where it comes from. Of course, being shipped from far away is going to raise the carbon footprint. Buying secondhand is a great option too. Dealing with garden waste. You can use wades to make compost. Taking it further, your garden is surprisingly rich in resources that can help reduce your carbon emissions not only when you're gardening, but in all areas of your life. I liked her explanation and suggestions of using plants against your house to benefit cooling in the summer and heating in the winter. This was a very good read. All right, so about the author. Sally Nix is a professional gardener and garden writer, and also teaches and gives lectures about food growing and sustainability. After a long career as a BBC News journalist in central London, she gave up the day job to follow her love of horticulture, combining journalism with gardening and a passion for the environment. She now writes regularly for the RHS magazine, The Garden, as well as BBC Gardener's World magazine, The Telegraph Gardening and Grow Your Own magazine, with a special interest in growing sustainably and organically. I really enjoyed this book, and Sally gave me a lot of great suggestions in helping to reduce our carbon footprint that I will surely use in my garden. This is a 5-star book, in my opinion.